We need to get dark money. That's that hidden funding behind too many campaigns contributions. We need to get it out of our politics. We need to enact an 18-year term limit, time and term, for the strongest ethics reforms for our Supreme Court. We need to ban members of Congress from trading stock while they're in the Congress.
Do we, Joe Biden, who's been in charge as president of the United States for the last 4 years? I don't remember him ever mentioning how we need to do something about dark money during his 4 years as president. I don't recall him having any issues with members of Congress trading individual stocks. But during his farewell address, all of a sudden he has this come to Jesus moment and realizes that corruption within our government is a problem. Now, look, Biden has never been a great public speaker. I'm gonna put that aside for now. Yes, there were lots of fumbles, there was a lot of stuttering. I'm not even gonna go after him on that. I'm gonna focus on the message that he's trying to put out there, because I think the substance of his speech, while is true, the things he says are things I agree with. Fact of the matter is, these are things that he didn't fight for. These are things that he himself is guilty of. This is something that affects the Democratic Party just as much as the Republican Party. And I can't stand the fact that he used his farewell address to signal to the world that he's some sort of warrior against money in politics and the corruption that has essentially upended our democracy ever since the Supreme Court loosened regulations pertaining to campaign finance. Now, the outgoing president decided to call out money in politics. He even went after the military-industrial complex, which is hilarious, given how much he supported the military-industrial complex during his time in office. So look, in the clip that you just watched, he specifically talked about dark money. And I want to focus on dark money for a minute, because dark money is a problem. Dark money is when politicians are funded to the tune of millions of dollars in some cases, and we don't know who the donors are. They don't have to disclose the donors when it comes to regulations, essentially concealing these dark money donors. And interestingly enough, Sludge, fantastic publication that specifically focuses on corruption in politics, looked into dark money donors for the Kamala Harris campaign versus Donald Trump's campaign. Now, look, I want to be clear. I'm not mentioning this as a way of providing cover for Trump, because Trump took dark money as well. I've said on this show a million times that Donald Trump is a very transactional individual. And so you give him money, you do favors, he'll give you cookies. That's who Trump is. I'm not providing cover for him. However, Sludge did a comparative analysis based on FEC filings to see, all right, well, which of the two candidates is raising the most when it comes to dark money? Take a look at this. The piece is titled, "Harris backed by 8.4 times more dark money than Trump." This was published by Donald Shaw, again, over at Sludge, if you want to check out this piece. But in it, he writes that super PACs supporting Harris have raised at least $195.8 million from dark money groups this election cycle, while those backing Trump have raised at least $23.2 million, according to a Sludge analysis of Federal Election Commission data. Now, this was a report from last October. After the election, I remember Sludge looking at the newest FEC filings, and Trump managed to close that gap between him and Kamala Harris a little bit when it comes to dark money. But even in the end, Harris far outraised Trump, not only when it comes to dark money, but when it comes to campaign contributions in general. So in regard to money in politics overall, not just dark money, Democrats massively outraised Republicans. The Democrats, their allied super PACs and other groups raised about 2.9 billion with a B dollars versus about 1.8 billion for the Republicans. And so now you're gonna talk about the problem with dark money, Biden, on your way out. You don't have a problem with it as the election cycle was underway, as Democrats, including the Democratic nominee, were collecting that dark money cash. You're just gonna do a virtue signal that you don't even really believe yourself on your way out to try to, clean up and launder your reputation. Like, it's just ridiculous to me. Now, look, Biden did a few good things during his term. He wasn't all bad. So I don't want to be completely unfair. His pick of Lena Khan as the chair of the FTC was something that I very much loved and wish was still going to be the case under the Trump administration. But no, he's replacing her. The other thing that he did was he did beef up the National Labor Relations Board. So it was actually, friendly to labor and actually fought on behalf of workers who were trying to organize their workplace, fought on behalf of workers who were victimized by their employer engaging in wage theft. These are the good things that Biden did. But these good things were really overshadowed by how he handled the war that Israel is prosecuting against Palestinians in Gaza. It was overshadowed by the fact that he didn't actually fight for many of the policies that he campaigned on, including reversing the corporate tax cuts that Donald Trump had implemented during his first term. And so I'm sorry, you want all of the glory, you want all of the credit without doing the work. And I get that some people expect me to come on this show daily and provide cover for Democrats. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell the truth. So with that in mind, let's get to the next clip where he talks about and fearmongers about America becoming an oligarchy.
I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. This is a dangerous concentration, and that's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. The dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead. People should be able to make as much as they can, but play by the same rules, pay their fair share of taxes. So much is at stake.
Now, in this case, in regard to the oligarchy, the only thing that the Biden administration can point to is Lena Khan and the fact that she fought to enforce antitrust regulations and prevent monopolies from forming. In that case, I do think that Biden has a leg to stand on. But let's talk about the issue of paying your fair share. Because the fact of the matter is, while Biden absolutely ran a campaign on reversing the corporate tax cuts that Donald Trump implemented during his first term, Biden didn't actually do that. And when he made his first offer, his first proposal to reverse the corporate tax cuts, he didn't start from a place of strength. And I think that was very much on purpose. So if you guys can recall, Trump cut the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%. Now, obviously, keep in mind the effective tax rate when you consider deductions and corporate tax loopholes is far, far, far lower, which is why you have very successful companies like Amazon paying literally nothing in federal taxes some years. Okay, and that was, of course, after Trump's corporate tax cuts. Now, when Biden was running, he said he's going to reverse it. Once he gets elected, he's like, I propose that we don't raise the corporate tax rate back to 35%. I propose that we raise the corporate tax rate to 28%. And then he went and hid in a corner somewhere, never to be seen again, okay? And didn't actually fight to raise the corporate tax rate to 28%. So which one is it, Biden? Are you worried about an oligarchy in America? Are you worried about too much corporate power? Are you worried about people not paying their fair share? Because if that was really something he was worried about, he would have actually fought to fix these issues during his time in office. But he didn't do that, did he? And he conveniently pointed to, Joe Manchin or Kirsten Sinema as the bad cops. Biden's the good cop. He's not going to fight for a damn thing. And when he gets backlash, he'll just point to the corporate Democrats who are ready and willing to raise their hands and say, no, we love corporate America. We love empowering the corporations, the corporate greed, and we like moving closer and closer to an oligarchy. And so luckily those two are no longer in the Senate, but that's actually what happened during Biden's term. And he can't launder his reputation when it comes to the lack of fight that we saw from Biden on these issues. All right, now, finally, Biden wanted to also talk a little bit about the military-industrial complex and also what he's referring to as the tech-industrial complex.
We see the same dangers of the concentration of technology, power, and wealth. You know, his farewell address, President Eisenhower spoke of the dangers of the military-industrial complex. He warned us then about, and I quote, the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power, end of quote. 6 decades later, I'm equally concerned about the potential rise of a tech-industrial complex that could pose real dangers for our country as well. Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies told for power and for profit.
I think the biggest issue I have with the tone of Biden's speech is he engaged in quite a bit of fear-mongering that I don't appreciate. So the Biden administration, the Democrats certainly had a lot more sway over social media and how censorious they were when they were ascendant, when they're leading to the 2020 presidential election. And I disagree with the notion that these social media platforms have given up on fact checking. That's not true. So look, I have all sorts of issues with Elon Musk. I have not been shy about that. And I actually think he is a massive hypocrite when it comes to the issue of free speech, especially after he banned people, suspended people who disagreed with him on H-1B visas on X. So that's a good example of him being a hypocrite when it comes to free speech. However, I'm also going to give him credit where credit is due. And in this case, it has to do with community notes. Community notes has been pretty fantastic. And Facebook has decided to implement the same community notes type policy. And I was skeptical of community notes. I didn't think it was going to work out. I thought it was actually going to further misinformation, but that has not happened. And so I like the idea of crowdsourcing these fact-checking mechanisms. And I do think that the best way to fight back against misinformation and disinformation is through more conversation. Because look, I used to be a little more in favor of censoring misinformation that could be harmful, especially during the time of COVID. But that actually did not help. Okay, we tried that out, it didn't help. And I do think community notes has been a better method in kind of cutting through the crap and figuring out what's going on. But overall, I mean, you want to talk about the military industrial complex? Biden, how much money have you collected from private military contractors? How much of a role did they play in encouraging the Biden administration to continue aiding and abetting the slaughter that we're seeing in the Gaza Strip? How much have they persuaded the Biden administration to continue dragging out the war in Ukraine rather than pushing for peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine? I mean, I think these are legitimate questions. And when you look at Biden's political record, I mean, put his presidency aside, Biden has signed on to all the wars. He was very much in favor of invading Iraq. And he's going to act as if he's any different from all the other politicians on both sides of the political aisle who benefited and took money from the military-industrial complex. Come on. I want to end with just an interesting Gallup survey. They surveyed Americans to see how they feel about the Biden administration now that it's coming to an end. And they found that the majority of Americans think the US has lost ground in 6 areas over the past 4 years, including the federal debt at 67%, immigration at 64%, the gap between the wealthy and less well off at 60%. Okay, 60% of Americans believe the Biden administration has made no progress when it comes to wealth inequality. Because guess what? They're right, he didn't. And let me just read the rest of it. When it comes to the economy, 59% say no progress during the Biden administration, and also the United States' position in the world. 58% believe that Biden made no progress on that, and also 51% feel that he made no progress on crime. By the way, during the same farewell address, Biden gave himself credit for lowering the crime rate. I'm just going to leave that there. Biden's net progress lags his three immediate predecessors significantly on national defense and the military, immigration, and taxes, and is also worse than Obama's and Trump's on the federal debt, the gap between the wealthy and less well off, and trade relations with other countries. The only area in which Americans feel that Biden has actually made some progress, or some progress was made during the Biden administration, is the issue of gay, lesbian, and transgender rights. So 39% of respondents feel that there was progress made during the Biden administration. About 31% say, nah, we've remained stagnant on that issue. And only 23% say that the country lost ground during the Biden administration on these issues. And finally, about 4 in 10 Americans, 39%, approve of the job Biden is doing as president, similar to the 37% he received in November and his 41% rating in late October. So Biden can do with that information what he will. It seems like he lacks quite a bit of self-awareness, especially since even in this late date, he feels that he could have beaten Donald Trump in the general election. If that helps him sleep at night, great. Go ahead and believe that. But the American people think differently.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members, because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us. Become a Young Turk.